Pricing is one of those things that can make both the buyer and seller uncomfortable. Everyone is shopping for price all the time. They want to get the lowest price. They want to get a price that makes them feel comfortable with their purchase. But price is equally important, if not more, for the person who is selling the product or service. And that's what I want to chat with you about here today. You see, often when we go to price our products and services, we're focused a little too much on what everyone else is doing and the price that everyone else makes available. Now, in some markets, of course, we have to be aware of that, we have to respect that, and we have to be competitive, if you will. But I also want you to think about the psychology of pricing for the sales professional, for the entrepreneur, and just how you feel in terms of offering price. Do you feel comfortable offering products and services at certain prices? Now, some folks might be very comfortable offering things at a discount because they feel that if they offer it at a discount, they're going to attract buyers. Others may have a product or service that isn't typically discounted, but a misstep can occur when you try to price something so that someone will buy it. You see, if you price something just at the price where someone will say yes, that doesn't take into account many other factors that should exist. For example, what is the value of what you offer? What is the value of that product or service? There we can get into some comparison, but really, what is the value to the person who's buying it? You know, if they're trying to do something, let's say, for a multi-million-dollar property, and you happen to have a product or service that goes into their property that's $100,000, $50,000, the pricing there is perhaps appropriate for whatever it is they're doing. Let's say you're servicing someone who's running a business and you're providing something that will help them attract more revenue. What kind of revenue are they trying to attract? What kind of organization are they building? This is a factor in terms of value. Let's say they're putting together an ensemble, that is something they're going to wear, and you're suggesting a particular item. Well, do you want to pair a very inexpensive item with an item of great value? You might want to say, hey, with an item like this, with a dress like this, with a suit like this, you certainly want to have something at the right level to accompany it. So value is very important, and it's all relative. And frankly, value is what we decide it is. So as a buyer, you have to be sure that when you price something, you've thought through the value to your client, to your customer, and that you feel confident when you are presenting that price because you understand the value. Now, the other component is the value of getting it from you. Because you see, that's where there are great variables that you can play around with. Let's say, for example, you go to a restaurant in a small town somewhere in the United States on a back road. They might be able to offer a product or a meal, for example, at a modest price. You know, maybe the rent is not high. Maybe they own the building. Maybe this is what people typically charge in that area. Maybe you have a sense of what people pay typically in that area, and you want to price it at that level. Contrast that to offering the same meal in Manhattan, and you're talking about a different number. Rents are higher. Expectations are higher. You're dealing with a different clientele. Now, what that also means is you might decide to add some other elements to the meal, to the dining experience that creates additional value as well, because, as I said, the expectations are higher. So these are factors that you have to consider. Now, remember the thing that gets so many entrepreneurs and so many sales professionals is this idea of being uncomfortable themselves offering something at a certain price point. Just because you wouldn't buy it, or I'd say maybe because you even can't buy it, does not mean there isn't someone out there who will buy it. I have seen that time and time again. I remember working closely with a shoe retailer, and there would be executives who would come in. They would fly into New York, and while they were having meetings, someone would go shopping for them or take care of orders for them, and they would buy 5, 6, 7 pairs of shoes at the top prices because they were in New York, and this is the expectation. They were going to get the best items, the best designers, the best choices, the best colors, the best selection from a place that was exceptional. So the question is, how do you get comfortable with your price from a value standpoint, from what you add to the dynamic, and also make sure that there aren't any blocks that are preventing you from excelling at higher price points? One of the biggest barriers for sellers, for entrepreneurs, is their own difficulty with money. Their difficulty in believing in what they sell, believing in themselves and presenting it, but also dealing with, wow, would someone pay for this? How do I tell them what the price is? Should I make my price like everyone else? It speaks to this phrase that I don't like, best practices. Best practices means I'm going to look around, see what everyone else does, and I'm going to do what they do. Well, best practices for you might be different than best practices for someone else. Best practices in some places is a hotel room that's $100 a night. Best practices in other places is a hotel room that's $2,000 a night. You make your choice. What's more important to you? What's more valuable to you? What do you feel more comfortable with? Now, initially, when you offer a product or service, you might have some challenges with pricing, but I want you to play around with pricing. I want you to offer things that are at increasingly higher price points. Not only because there are people out there who will buy it, but because I want you to get comfortable offering it at that level. You see, pricing is often psychological. It's psychological not only for the buyer, it's psychological for the seller. So when it comes to pricing, remember, it's up to you. You make the decision. You can base it on a number of factors. I've mentioned a few. Or you can base it on what you'd like to get for your product or service. You can just decide, this is what I want for my product or service. I remember some years ago, I went into a food store in the corner, and I was getting a soup. And at the time, $5 for a cup of soup was rather expensive. This beautiful neighborhood Soho, very artsy and creative. My office was down the block. I walked in, and I said, oh my goodness, this soup is $5? And the gentleman said to me, oh, absolutely, I think it's worth it. We have so many fresh vegetables in here. It's prepared lovingly, homemade. We source all of these items ourselves. No pesticides, nice and fresh. And then we add this beautiful homemade muffin with it. I think it's worth it, don't you? And I said, yes, it is worth it. And I never questioned that price again. In fact, I would often enjoy that soup, and I would tell folks around me about how beautifully it was prepared, how tasty it was, and how pure and clean the ingredients were. Pricing is psychological. You decide what it is. You decide what it's worth. And now go get your price. If you like this tip, give me a thumbs up. Let me know you liked it. Share it with someone in your network. There's a lot more here and a lot more coming. And I'll see you next time.